I think I need another understanding of the definition um, of another definition of society, which is that they are the rules of etiquette, the formal relationships on which the diverse people within the community can nonetheless tolerate each other. They're the boundaries that result in at least some superficial harmony. Conflicts are minimized despite the variety. Whereas for true fellowship, we need to be of a certain set of values. Some distribution, some variety of values, but too much variety and fellowship explodes apart, and our solution is just isolation from each other, which avoids the active conflict, just leaves the inharmonies there. So we may strive to have a conformity of values, not just a conformity of formal relationships. So if I discuss with you why I'm vegetarian, and in a sense, also hear why you are not, there is often a hope that the other person will come round to your view and shift their values. Now, this is probably the exception rather than the rule. We simply become aware of how different we both are, and wonder whether such could cause some problems between us in harmonious actions on each other's part vis-a-vis the other. And we start to separate ourselves in consequence of this openness of who we truly are. So you might sort of think, oh, this person's very open, that's a big plus and positive. Yes, it gives you the opportunity of knowing whether you're going to accept or reject them. It gives you the opportunity also of possibly shifting values so that you're more like them. And if they'll hear you, them doing likewise. But we may be so firmly entrenched in our present values differences that we can really only abide each other if we retire to the rules of etiquette of our society. Now, very diverse societies don't have such rules, or rather they have such a variety of rules that, my etiquette is not your etiquette. Oh my goodness, now we really are in trouble. I mean, we need some overarching political correctness, if you like, that's been agreed on, that will override our cultural, ethical ways of relating to each other. And so, of course, I think of the example of where, in traditional cultures you never interrupt an older person, or in a civilized society, generally you never interrupt someone who is in authority over you. Be it the employer or the minister of a church or whatever, the teacher, the parent. Whereas, I might be so used to an academic world where you treat people as equal in authority. When it comes to your specialist subject, you are the authority with others that are also the authority on your subject. Unless he's the boss, the chairman of the department, the professor, So even though, say, the dean happens to be the same qualification as yourself, or in fact you may be better qualified in his field of academic ability, his organisational position of authority over you prevents an equal relationship. So we find the boss, the managers, the ones in authority in organisations tend not to be in fellowship with those beneath them. It spoils the work situation. It interferes with it in some way. The work relationship may tend to take priority, not fellowship relationship. So we retire to the etiquette that we're used to in our society. He says good morning, you say good morning to him. In some work situations, you don't say good morning to the boss until he talks to you. And if he does talk to you, you answer him even if you don't want to. You don't give him an honest answer, you give him a formal answer. It might be that you don't contradict him. If he says, what a lovely day, you agree with him. Not, oh, I feel a bit cold actually. I mean, even to that level of detail, your conversation is being influenced. There are some communities where when a person asks you a question, you don't immediately answer them. You make sure that your answer is going to be something they wish to hear. That is a form of politeness in your culture. And you definitely drop into that with where there's a difference in status between you. And that is your protection, that you revert to relating on the etiquette basis of your community. And you need to know what that is. And not what you might value as regards true fellowship. So you become alienated in your social role. What happens if you don't have a private interaction with others? Well, you may live alone and suffer isolation, a lack of fellowship, meaningful fellowship. You might have one at church, but you're conforming to the etiquette of church, not relating to each other for real. But you're eternally, if you like, talking about the weather, not the things that matter to you. And you're lonely and isolated. Now, if you're sent to what's called a public school in England, and we don't mean a government-funded school now, we mean a extremely expensive private education, you are taught how to relate correctly in this formal way, despite your differences of values. And if you don't go to such a school, you just go to the local school in your area, you get very little of this training. You are among a group of people that will not necessarily be trained in it. Hence, what you're buying when you buy private, very costly education is a social ability that will be in harmony with your society, but in particular, a particular group of your society, the elite group, the successful ones that are likely to be in authority, and so forth. An unfortunate side effect may be that you'll be well trained in being very shallow in relationships, never really getting to know the people, not really having meaningful fellowship relationships, but only relationships that fit into hierarchical authority structures. And your real needs as a person in fellowship may not be met. Whereas the more ordinary folk in your society are good at fellowship among people who are like themselves. But this doesn't extend at all well to others of different values. Hence we see that by comparison, the upper class in the society appear very hypocritical in that they're relating as if they were in fellowship with others, but in fact are just relating on the rules of etiquette basis. There is no true fellowship between them. I mean, for instance, take the situation where you don't discuss questions of economics, politics, or religion. Well, that sums up much of what's important to a person. And you don't share that sort of thing. I mean, that would be an extreme case, but not so extreme. You find that there are areas in each of those fields that you definitely don't discuss with other people because it could be a contentious issue and will divide us. In other words, you achieve a harmony, but it's a shallow relationship to do so. And relationships remain shallow. And you're starved of fellowship accordingly. You're not actually good at relating, if you like, in a brotherly comrade type situation. It's alien to you. In the extreme, the loneliest people are the ones at the top. In modern society, you can be even more lonely at the bottom because you don't have a wealth of money, and power and authority that makes others want to relate to you, albeit on a formal basis. And you don't have fellowship either because of the mobility in modern society. In large part, consequence of its technology. In this sense, interestingly, you can see the modern world as needing a relationship with God more than traditional societies. And in particular, a very real, personal, loving God, one that's going to compensate for the lack of true family and fellowship at all levels of life. Wow, thank you, Dad, for this need. Else we wouldn't come to you, would we? So it's a blessing. Thank you, Dad.